Okay. So Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to Gita Gyan, Essence of the Bhagavad Gita, day 18. So this is the 18th day of the 18th chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. And today we will continue the chapter 18. So as usual, we dedicate this presentation to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, Founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as ISKCON. So let's join me with this prayer if you can follow. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sri Srinitha Sundar Gaura Hari Panchatattva. And this is Sri Radha Madhava. This is a temple in Ukraine, in the town called Kyiv. So very sweet deities. So I thought I would show these pictures today. And I sent a video today also in the group showing the opening ceremony, the installation of these deities. So here's another picture, very sweet. So let us chant the Gita. Let us go through the Gita Mahatmya. Yatra Gita Vicharascha Patanam Tatha Modate Tatra Sri Krishno Bhagavan Radhaya Saha. With the supreme ecstasy, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna and his divine consort Sri Radhika are graciously present wherever the conception of the Gita scripture is discussed, studied, and taught. So this is a very nice verse also, similar to Lord how Hanumanji is always there whenever the names of Ram is uttered, or wherever the Ramayana is uttered. So in the same way, this particular verse says the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna and his divine consort are present whenever we speak or discuss or recite this Bhagavad Gita. So that's why the names, form, pastimes, the Nama, Rupa, Leela, Guna, and paraphernalia of the Lord are all non-different. So it's basically the understanding is that simply by chanting one's names or even reading the instructions of the Gita, we directly associate with the Lord personally. So let us sing this mantra together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we will recap chapter 17 yesterday. It was called Divisions of Faith. So here we saw how faith can also be in the three modes. Now Arjuna was asking what happens to those who do not follow the regulations of scripture. So they have faith. It's not that they don't have faith. Like the asuras, they don't have faith. Whereas the suras, they have faith, but at the same time, some may be not inclined to follow scriptures. So, the agnostic type. So therefore, what is their outcome? So generally, the faith is also within the three modes. So therefore, Krishna talked about that. We discussed this. And after speaking about faith in the three modes, all those aspects which are related to faith, such as austerity, penance, food, sacrifice, charity, all these things are also part of or related to one's faith. So therefore, Krishna speaks about these matters also, and and it was shown how these are also within the three modes. So as everything is within the three modes. So here we are able to see what are the differences, especially in these. And then Krishna says, ultimately, whatever sacrifice, austerity, food, charity, which is prepared or given away, Krishna says, give it away go beyond the mode of goodness. To do it in the mode of goodness is basically, it's basically as a matter of duty, without any expectations or return. So that is goodness. But Krishna is saying, go beyond that. So rather than just do that, dedicate it to me. So when you dedicate to me, right, then it becomes transcendental, spiritual. So that's the benefit here. So then one becomes a yogi. So he talks about the Om Tat Sat mantra. So therefore, whenever we do any austerities, food, sacrifice, charity, and all that, dedicated at the end of it, we should say Om Tat Sat with the mind, with the consciousness that all this, we invoke the Lord with the word Om, or we can say Hari Om Tat Sat. So we invoke the Lord with the word Om, and we give away everything or all fruitive. We how to say, dedicate these activities for the pleasure of the Lord with the word Tat. And that means we are not taking anything for ourselves. So we give it for the pleasure of the Lord. We dedicate it. And just like how food we give to the Lord, but after that, once it's purified, then we also eat, right? We take it as prasad. So in that consciousness, whatever comes our way, we accept and we use it. So then it is spiritualized. So that is Om Tat Sat. Okay, so these were the takeaways yesterday. Faith, food, sacrifice, austerity, and charity in the three modes. Transcend the three modes with Om Tat Sat. So today we are going to chapter 18. It's the longest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, 78 verses. So let's try to complete it. So where do we start off? What's the connection between chapter 17 and chapter 18? So if you see, in chapter 15 itself, Krishna talks about the conditioned jivas, how the jivas came about to be in the material creation, how they entered into prakriti, material creation, and in this way, they become conditioned by the three modes. And then those who are conditioned within this material creation, in chapter 16, Krishna says there are two types. Those who follow, and those who are divine and those who are demoniac. So we spoke about that in chapter 16. And then amongst those who are divine in quality or trying to be divine, or directly not being demonic, there are two types also. So those are karmis. These are those who are attached to the results. That means they want to enjoy something specifically. So therefore they act in such a way so that they can satisfy their senses or their minds or their false ego. So these are called karmis, but they do it in a legal way. They follow the route given in the Vedas. And then there are also the other type who are not interested in fruitive activities because they have understood that fruitive activities like the banyan tree, you remember we spoke about the banyan tree, it's endless and it is simply going to lead to frustration and it's not really going to give us true happiness. So therefore, these people, they, by dint of transcendental knowledge, they have decided to take the yogi path, the path of transcendence. So then, therefore, from chapter 17, where Krishna talked about those, because Arjuna asked, right, what about those who are, do not have faith? So from there, Krishna was speaking about the karmis generally, the fruitive workers. But what about those who do have faith? So therefore, it comes to chapter 18, the yogi. So chapter 18 is basically about the yogi. So the title, the topic, the chapter is conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. It's also called moksha sannyasa yoga. So in the beginning part of the chapter 18, it will be all about sannyasa. Sannyasa means basically we will learn what is actually this word, what's the meaning of this in this chapter, and what is the goal of all of these. So the direction of all of this is towards moksha. The arrangement of all activities and actions and social structure which is created by the Lord, everything aims towards moksha or liberation. So, and then he talks about what is that moksha and what's the ultimate attainment. And then he concludes, he makes a conclusion of the overall Bhagavad Gita and it ends there. So we begin with this verse. Arjuna raises a question. Arjuna uvacha sanyasasya mahabahu tatvam icchami veditum Tyagasya cha hrishikesha pritakkesi nisudana. So three different names Arjuna calls Krishna. He calls him Mahabahu. Mahabahu means mighty armed. And he calls him Hrishikesha. Hrishikesha means master of the senses. And he also calls him Kesi Nisudana, the killer of the Kesi demon, the horse demon of pride. So there are deep meanings behind what these words were used by Arjuna, but we will not speak about that in this Gita again level 1. But nevertheless, the meaning here, Arjuna is saying, "O mighty armed one, Mahabahu, O Kesini Sudana, and O Rishikesha, I wish to understand." So Arjuna wants to know the purpose of renunciation, because we've heard so much about renunciation. Of course, Krishna did mention all these things in chapter 12 also, ultimately is to attain me. So here, Arjuna is asking about the purpose of renunciation because we are now talking again about the transcendental aspect.
Excuse me,
So,
Prabhu.
yes.
We don't seem to be able to see the English version. The translation.
Perhaps it's a lagging. Is it the case for everybody?
Now it's okay, Prabhu, but lagging.
Oh, it's coming up. It's lagging, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, let me check my internet. It's not. It's okay. Usually it's not very strong, but it's okay. 5G and all that, but still. Okay. All right. So the purpose of renunciation, tyaga. And then so there are two words here. One is tyaga and the other is sannyas. So sannyas and tyaga. So what's the difference and what's the purpose behind that? So the purpose of renunciation, that means to give up, to give away. So that's tyaga. But there's also something called sannyasa. Sannyasa is a renounced order of life. One who takes up sannyasi means he's socially dead. He no longer involves himself with anything material. So that means he does not do any work. So this is sannyas. So let's see what's the definition given by Krishna. So Krishna will reply to Arjuna, tyaga, giving up fruits of all activities, 18.2. So this is what tyaga means. That means it doesn't mean one gives up action. One continues to do action, but one gives up the fruits. So this is karma yoga. We have already heard about it in chapter 3. So it's also called tyaga. So Krishna is saying better to do tyaga than to do sannyasa. Because sannyas, if one is not ready for it, there's no turning back, and then it will create disturbance in society. So this is again the repetition of what the same points we have mentioned. Premature renunciation is not to be taken up. So better to work and give up the fruits of all activities. And sannyasa is defined as giving up activities itself based on material desires. That means anything material one gives up. That is sannyas. And then, so basically 18.1 and 18.2 is about sannyas and tyaga. But then from 18.3 onwards, is it better to renounce, sacrifice, charity, and penance? Right? We're talking about sannyas, giving up. So in terms of giving up material activities, so is it recommended one should give up sacrifice, charity, and penance? So therefore, Krishna's response is sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be renounced, even though one is taking up the path of yoga. So that's why Krishna, even in chapter 12, he also discussed, if one cannot follow the path of bhakti, one should begin with karma yoga and not jump straight to jnana or dhyana, because those are at a higher level for the jnana path. It must begin with karma yoga. And even then, sacrifice, even if one is in the higher path also, these activities should never be renounced. And then Krishna talks about sannyas in the three modes. So if these are, basically sanya, everything is within the three modes. So Krishna will talk about sannyas in three modes. And then he'll go on to say tyaga is superior to sannyas. It's better to have a renounced mentality than to completely renounce action. So these are basically, again, some repetition which was mentioned earlier in earlier chapters. So you should be familiar with these terms. So now we will focus more on the three modes. So he raises this point up again because he wants to discuss each of these points in the three modes. So sannyas in the three modes, we can summarize it this way. Mode of ignorance. If one takes sannyas, if one gives up all activities with this consciousness, gives up prescribed duties because of illusion, because he thinks that he will get something which won't be the real thing, because he thinks he will get happiness, or if he thinks that, if I give up my responsibility, I will be peaceful. So this is called illusion. So if one does it in the wrong premise, with the wrong idea, so that is sannyas in the mode of ignorance. So Arjuna wanted to do that in the beginning of chapter 1, right? He wanted to give up and go to the forest. So we are now coming back full circle after discussing all the aspects in Bhagavad Gita. We are coming back full circle to this point again. And then, but here Krishna is defining them in the three modes, deeper understanding. So then what about sannyas in the mode of passion? This is very interesting point here. If one gives up prescribed duties simply because they were troublesome or out of fear or bodily discomfort, so that is sannyas in the mode of passion. So what will sannyas in the mode of passion will lead to? It is simply impermanent. It's temporary. It's a new broom sweep clean matter, and it's not going to lead anywhere. So it's a waste of time. But therefore, sannyas should be done in the mode of goodness. So this is the correct way to take sannyas if one is so inclined. So one performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done, and renounces all material association and all attachment to the fruit. So this is very similar to tyaga, and Krishna says one who has this mentality, even though he does not have a saffron cloth, takes up a danda stick for sannyas, he is as good as a sannyas. So this is the actual point of sannyas, right? So this is the sannyas in the three modes. And then Krishna goes on to talk about the secrets of action, because we are talking about renouncing activities or renouncing the fruits of activities. And he talks about the secret of action. So when we say something is being done, in this world, generally people think that if there is a cause for anything to happen, they think that they are the cause. If, for example, people want to become very rich, so they think that usually it's basically my own effort. I do this and I will be very rich. So they do not know that there are 5 causes of action. So most people will think that myself, I, the body, they will think that whatever activities I do with sufficient effort, this will lead to results. So that is not what Gita says. Gita says this is just 2 of those factors. There are, in fact, 5 factors which cause the result of action if something is to be done. For example, if a farmer wants to harvest crops and enjoy the result of it, right? So we can use this as an analogy. The farmer is like the, what do you call, okay, never mind. Before we go to that farmer part, let me just speak about this. So this is usually the atheistic mentality. They think of just body and effort. Why I put body? Because they don't consider themselves even as souls. Like many, like scientists in general, or the Sankhyaites, they think that human life is basically as good as animal life. So, and they don't accept the concept of soul. So this is pure atheists. But chapter 2, Krishna already discussed about the soul. We quite understand the aspect of soul. So therefore, we have the worker. The worker is the soul. So you could say an example like this: the farmer is the worker or the soul. Okay, if the farmer wants to enjoy something in his right, what will he do? He needs a plot of land in order to farm or to get what he wants. So what he knows to do is to do farming. So in order for him to satisfy his desires, he needs a plot of land. So that plot of land is like the place, and that's like the body. So the soul, in order to satisfy its desire, its karma, its inclinations, it needs a body. So this body is given by Prakriti, material nature. And in this way, it's basically like a tool for him to start working, to execute his desires. Otherwise, he cannot interact with matter. The soul cannot directly interact with matter. So it needs the material body in order to, which is also made up of matter, to interact with matter in order to get what he wants. So these are the 3 factors given by the Gita. One is soul, and the soul requires a body. And how do we get the type of body? Now, in order for us to do certain things, the body has to be sufficiently suitable. Like one cannot do farming if one is given an animal body, or a plant body. So therefore, he has to get the right type of body in order to attain that particular desire. So the soul has to get a particular body, right? And this body is given to the person, to the soul, according to his previous karma. So how much, whether he deserves. So according to what he deserves, he's given a specific particular type of body. And together with this body comes also a particular set of senses. The 5 senses, including the mind, a set of them, which is all linked to the subtle mind. So remember, we take birth after birth, and we carry with us not only ourselves, the soul, the subtle body also comes with us life after life. And this subtle body is consisting of the mind, intelligence, and the ego. So these 3 things, it carries the impressions, carries the likes and dislikes, the impressions, these kind of things. So when the new body is given, the senses will also be adjusted accordingly to what the soul, what the mind, the impressions which are stored in the mind, according to the impressions which are stored in the mind, and based on the understanding which he carries with him in his intelligence. So he gets a set of senses. Like for example, he enjoyed a certain specific set of food in his previous life. So in this life also, he develops a similar inclination. So like that, automatically, without even being taught, he develops that certain inclination. So therefore, we see some people who very young, they are able to play the piano very well, or they are able to, play chess very well. So nobody taught them. They just are able to just do it. Or some people are just naturally, they are very dramatic, or they can sing well. So it's part of the impressions, the desires which came from previous life, together with adjusted according to the karma on the deserve. So, and then the worker, right, the soul, and then he gets the body, and according to his senses, he will put a certain amount of effort. So, and in this way, he will think that he will get whatever result that he can enjoy. But this is not true, because there is also another factor. So there is worker, body, senses, effort, and there is also Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, who allows or doesn't allow. So if destiny is not there to support, no matter how much the worker does, or no matter how much the body is suited for that particular output, or no matter how well attuned the senses are for that particular result, or no matter how much effort one puts, without the sanction of the Paramatma, those results will not take place. So therefore, there are 5 aspects to the cause of action. So just like we have the farmer is the soul. The farmer needs land in order to get what he wants. So what he uses in the land, so he has a set of senses. So therefore, the senses are like his tools. So he has land, he's there, he's able, and then he needs certain tools, right? And in order for him to execute what he wants to do with the land. So that is like the instruments, this like the senses. And then now he's got the tools. Now he's ready to satisfy his desire. So therefore, in order to satisfy his desire, he puts in some effort. He plows the land. Okay. So in this way, Gita says, whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. And therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, as how usually materialistic people tend to think, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Right. So now that we understand this concept of these 5 causes of action, now that this farmer, he's using his effort to plow the land. And then let's say he has a desire. He wants to enjoy a harvest of rice, let's say, a big harvest of rice, so that he can enjoy it. So in order for him to get that output, that result, he needs to have knowledge, jnana, right? So knowledge, for example, here is the how to plant and what to do in order to attain that result that he wants. And then once he has knowledge, then he has that object. What is the object? Basically, he knows that he needs to plant in this way, he needs to irrigate the field in this way. And then what is he going to plant? He wants to plant rice, paddy, for example. So this is what he wants to get. So this is the object of that knowledge. So what is the object of all this effort and knowledge? He wants to get paddy, rice. Okay. And once he gets this object, the illusion of the jiva is he thinks that once I attain this object, I will attain happiness. So this is his illusion. So therefore, he constantly tries life after life in this material creation. So a good harvest would be happy for the farmer. So now let us try to understand all of these in the 3 modes. Okay. So first of all, we begin with knowledge. Jnanam in the 3 modes. Knowledge is called jnana, right? Jnana in the 3 modes. So this is described by 1819 to 1822. So in the mode of goodness, knowledge in the mode of goodness, what is the characteristic? So we can understand. One, knowledge in the mode of goodness is one understands that the one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all innumerably divided living entities. So we have already described this in some extent already. This is the goal of the yogi, right? The yogi eventually will understand that the Paramatma is, we are all part and parcel of the Supreme. To understand that everything is Brahman, everything is spirit. To understand that, there's divinity in each and every living entity. So we do not see based on the body, we see with the eyes of scripture, and we are able to see the soul and particularly the Paramatma within our hearts. So this kind of knowledge is considered mode of goodness. Note, it is still mode of goodness. It is not transcended yet, because transcendence comes when one comes to the platform of Brahman and Bhakti. So then what is knowledge in the mode of passion? Knowledge in the mode of passion is he doesn't see everything as a part of divinity. He sees difference in everything. In every different body, there is a different type of living entity. So this is the type of knowledge of those who are in the mode of passion. They see differences. So, why does the dog and the cat continue to fight? Because the dog thinks he is a dog and the cat thinks he is a cat, and they don't like each other. So therefore, this is knowledge in the mode of passion. If the cat can understand that the dog is also Jiva and I am also Jiva, and I do not want to do this to another Jiva, so then that would be coming in the mode of goodness. If one can understand this and respect that, that is knowledge in the mode of goodness. So this is duality. In goodness, there is no duality. But then in passion, one tends to see things in duality. And then there is the mode of ignorance. One is attached to one kind of work as the all in all. So he thinks that only what he's doing, or only this, only it's the best, is the all in all. He doesn't know about anything else, right? Without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager. So this is knowledge in the mode of ignorance. So basically it's an illusion. So for example, people, they are called the Mudas. Mudas means the foolish, that they consider that their life is all about work, work, work. So they do not understand anything beyond that. They do not talk about anything beyond that. So even after they retire, they do not know what else to do. And then they get depressed, and Alzheimer and all that starts to set in, because they don't know what else to do with their lives. So this is jnanam in the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So now that we have defined knowledge in the three modes, so this Paramatma is expanding. Even this knowledge is received by the grace of Paramatma. By the grace of Paramatma, the worker gets his body, the place or the body is received by the grace of Paramatma according to his karma and all that. And by the grace of Paramatma, he gets his senses, and whatever effort that he is able to perform, and with the knowledge, he is able to eventually get the rest of the results. It's all by the grace of Paramatma. So we have spoken about knowledge. So now, before we go further into the other things, let's move to the worker, the action and the worker. So that means the effort and also the worker. So these are also in the three modes. So Krishna will talk about these things in the three modes. So this is I've put both together, action and worker. So in the mode of goodness, that action which is regulated, that means it's following a routine. That whatever action which is routine based, regulated, performed without attachment, without love or hatred. That means without attachment. So basically that's the idea. It's based out of duty and without desire for fruitive results. So it's not that we do something because we like doing it or we don't like doing it. It is basically done simply out of duty. So that action is considered in the mode of goodness. So we don't want to include passion inside, because this love here usually involves passion. Oh, I like doing this, I'm passionate about this. So when one does in that mood, then it's no longer mode of goodness. And the worker, the type of worker who is in the mode of goodness is he who performs his duty without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm. So even though there is no passion involved, because he is fixed in his purpose, he still nevertheless does his work with great determination. He doesn't need mundane passion or likes and dislikes to motivate him. You know, like for example, in the beginning when there's marriage, right? Or the mother has a child, the child is a lot of trouble for the mother, isn't it, to have the child? So that the connection is not yet so very strong yet, because now only they had the child. So they do not know the personality very well and everything. So yet in the beginning, the mother will do all that needs to be done. Not because out of passion or out of whatever. Yes, there is some love for the child, but it is basically more out of duty. And in this way, it is very close to the mode of goodness. Okay, and without wavering in success or failure. So this is the kind of characteristics of the worker in the mode of goodness. Now let's see what's an example of work of mode of goodness. This is, for example, you have to put a picture here, how the Pandavas, Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas will perform all activities as an act of dharma. They do not consider like or dislike. They do it as duty, right? So this is an example. If you read Mahabharata, we can see how Yudhishthira Maharaj behaved. And Lord Ramachandra is another example. Everything he did based on duty. He showed the way how one should take up. You know, when Dasharatha told him to go to the forest, yes, it's not nice, but it was duty. So he didn't consider whether it is good or bad, whether he liked it. Good or bad, yes. Duty is always done according to goodness. But he didn't consider whether he liked it or he didn't like it. So he just did it because his father's word as the king has to be upheld. So therefore, that is dharma. So therefore, he did it. So that kind of understanding is in the mode of goodness. And then there is also action in the mode of passion, performed with great effort. Now, this would be most of us in this world will fall usually into this category. Very few are in this category. Few decades ago, the older generation are mostly in this mode of goodness. They used to do things in this mood, but nowadays it's more towards the mode of passion. Performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires and enacted from a sense of false ego, right? So most people nowadays, why do they do what they do? Not because it should be done, because they want something out of it. They want to enjoy the fruits of it. So that's mode of passion. So for example, here we have Duryodhana, how Duryodhana was so greedy, right? He wanted to take the kingdom of the Pandavas in whatever, impure way. So here we have the characteristic, worker who is attached to work and the fruits of work, who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow. So because of this behavior, because of this action, naturally the person in the mode of passion, the worker, will also imbibe these qualities. He cannot escape from it. So as long as he has these particular characteristics of action, these also will be there. So he will be disturbed. Another example is here, Mantara. Mantara is the hunchback in Ramayana, who went and told Kaikeyi, the queen, she told Kaikeyi that Rama is going to be, she poisoned her mind basically against Rama, because she wanted to enjoy the pole position, to be the maidservant of Kaikeyi. Because if Kaikeyi is no longer, if Rama becomes the king, Kaikeyi will not be the most favored queen. So then her status will not be so great, and Mantara's status, the maidservant status, also will not be great. So therefore, she had a hidden agenda. And that's why she polluted Kaikeyi's mind to ask for Lord Ram to go to the forest. So these are the people in the modes of passion. And then we see mode of ignorance. The action is characterized as performed in illusion in disregard of scriptural injunctions. So it is without scriptural injunction. That means do not know what is right, what is wrong. It's at least mode of passion. They do what is right, but they follow the scriptures or they follow the dharma, what should be done. They follow the law, but they do it for their own motivation. That is mode of passion. But here in ignorance, they do not know what is right, what is wrong, and it is complete disregard, formed in illusion, without concern for future bondage or harm caused to others. So they don't care what harm may befall others. So this is the characteristic. And the type of worker who is described, worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of scripture. They purposely do things which are against. Who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others. And who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating. So these are the characteristics. It's not that all of them may appear in one person. The parts and parcels, as I said, the three modes, they keep rotating. It's very complex. So in this way, we have understood the effort and the worker, the nature of those in the three modes. We have also understood knowledge in the three modes. Now, once we have the knowledge, we are able to attain the object of our senses. We want to attain it. We think that getting this object will make us happy. So in order to cross, to actually to bridge between knowledge and getting the object, which will make us happy. So to cross the bridge between knowledge and getting the object, one has to have understanding of this knowledge. One has to apply this knowledge. So the application of this knowledge is also in the three modes. This application of knowledge is called understanding. And by correct understanding, one is able to get the object of that knowledge. For example, the farmer, he knows he has to irrigate, he knows he has to put fertilizer, he knows he has to plant during this season. All that is knowledge. And with his effort and his body and his senses, he performs all these activities. And the type of understanding that he got a good understanding. So therefore, he's able to grow the crops properly. If he had gotten improper understanding, there may have been some issues. He may not have gotten his object of knowledge properly. So therefore, the understanding is also there. Knowledge is one thing, right? What one does with that knowledge, how one applies that knowledge is also another point. So therefore, this also is in the three modes. So we can understand what are the three modes of understanding. So this is understanding in the mode of goodness. So it says here, by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. So they clearly understand what to be done, what is not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, and what is binding and what is liberating. So this discriminatory power is very important. So knowledge is one thing, everybody can learn knowledge, but very few people can discriminate. That's why that's one of the factors of intelligence. Intelligence doesn't mean simply able to memorize everything and able to repeat everything back. So that is one aspect, but there are other aspects of intelligence, even more important than memory. Memory is one aspect, but another aspect is the ability to know what to take and what not to take, to differentiate. Like we receive WhatsApp messages and we simply blindly forward them to people. So we need to know what is fake news and what is not, what is suitable to be forwarded and what is not, what is acceptable and what is not. So that requires a little bit of intelligence. That requires one to be able to discriminate, to understand which is to be applied and which is not. Like there are all kinds of news in the world. Which news is proper, which news is not, which news is propaganda, which news is being manipulated, right? We know Kali Yuga, people use media to manipulate everything. So therefore, to understand that, so majority of the population generally don't. So that's why the politicians are able to take advantage of the masses. The power of propaganda. If you study the power of propaganda, it is a tool which is used by all politicians and everybody in order to get what they want. So therefore, this is very important. And then we have understanding in the modes of passion, by which cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion. So they cannot distinguish what is religion and what is irreligion. They do not know between action that should be done and action that should not be done. So that means their understanding is improper. It is called in the mode of passion. They've got the knowledge, the same knowledge was given, just like, Duryodhana also got the same knowledge. Whatever that Arjuna and the Yudhishthira and the Pandavas know, Duryodhana also knew, but he could not differentiate. He was illusioned by his desires. So therefore, that created this illusion, and he could not, even if he could, he didn't want to. So that is understanding in the mode of passion. So mode of ignorance, which considers, this is verse, mode of ignorance, it is opposite. It considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion. It's exact opposite, right? So there are people, they do suicide bomb attacks, and they think that this is religion because they have been brainwashed to know that this will bring them to heaven. So that kind of understanding. They actually do it because they think they are being religious. So there are some activities like this. It's there in every religious in religions. So people do this. They get manipulated because this is Kali Yuga. So everything gets hijacked by economics, politics, including religion. And under the spell of illusion and darkness, and strives always in the wrong direction. So these are people's characteristics who have got a wrong understanding in the mode of ignorance. So that's why it's very important for one to have a proper guide. So in scriptures, that's why to understand Dharma, one needs a guru. And this guru has to come from the parampara, because otherwise one stands the risk of being cheated. And anyway, this parampara, the knowledge which comes through the parampara bears fruit. So everything is given in the Shastra. The scriptures are the guide to stop us from getting cheated and being exploited. So one has to take reference. One cannot blindly accept. One has to refer the scriptures, and based on that, approach basically based on, there are 3 checkpoints: Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. So Shastra is the main point, and it has to be, these 3 always counter check balance each other. So what the Guru says, the Guru must repeat what Shastra says, the conclusions. But the Guru is expert. He knows how to pick the right points to tell the disciple. So he knows what exactly is the best thing from the Shastra, which will help the disciple. And he will never go against the conclusions of the parampara, which is the sadhus. So it is always in line. He doesn't create something new. So scripture is not like research. We do not create new things. We basically try to understand the same things there. So this is passed down based on disciplic succession. It doesn't mean that suddenly I've created something new. No. So then, right, so we've spoken about knowledge, the bridge between knowledge and the object of knowledge. So the object of knowledge is basically what they think, what the worker thinks will give him happiness. So, and between this object of knowledge, now he grows. Let's say the farmer grows the paddy. The paddy is already growing nicely because he has applied his knowledge well or whatever. So the object of knowledge is growing. Okay. So now he wants to try to get something out of this object. So he thinks by exploiting this object, by enjoying this object, he will get happiness. So how is he going to employ his this object which he has got? So that falls, the bridge here will be determination. So with determination, he will continue and he'll grow the whatever fruits that he wants to enjoy. And by that determination, he hopes to enjoy happiness. So this determination is also in the three modes. So Krishna will speak about the modes in the three types of determination. So determination in the mode of goodness, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses. So an example is like how Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, how in the age of 68, he, despite all, the Sumati Morarji will say, don't go to the West. You're old, this is America, you have nobody there. But he was determined to go to satisfy the instruction of his guru. And he had complete faith in the Lord that this will happen, or something he will have to try. So therefore he did it. Unbreakable determination, steadfastness based on yoga practice, thus control the activities of the mind, life, and senses. This is in the mode of goodness. Determination in the mode of passion is that by which one holds fast to fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification. So this is towards passion, and this will lead to misery. And finally, ignorance. So determination in the mode of ignorance, this kind of determination is simply dreaming. It cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion. So it is simply hallucination or dream. One likes to do daydreaming, but one doesn't want to put any effort. Passion is different. They put a lot of effort, but the goal is skewed. It's not the right. And even this effort is very much linked to the result. If the result is good, then the effort increases. If the result is bad, the effort decreases. Whereas in goodness, the result doesn't matter. Whether the result is good, whether the result is bad, the determination and the effort is the same. It's consistent throughout, right? So in the same way, that is how one should take up spiritual activities. So this will lead towards success. This is what Krishna is saying here. So in this way, one is able to ultimately, the worker with the body and the place, with the senses, with this effort, with the knowledge all provided by Paramatma, the object of knowledge also provided by Paramatma, and the happiness which results out of these, the so-called happiness which is resulting, which is temporary and flickering, which comes out of these, that is also within the three modes. So let's see what's the three modes of happiness. The Sukham. So characteristic of goodness, in the beginning, it may be like poison, but nectar at the end. So this is the type of happiness which is characterized by the mode of goodness. So spiritual life is like that. In the beginning, it may feel difficult, like chanting or every other thing, but in the end, it will bring about nectar. Awakens one to self-realization. Whereas the mode of passion it's derived from contact of the senses with their objects. So it is something to do with the senses and their objects only. So this is mode of passion. It is not something beyond. It appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end. So this is the same with everything, money, sexual gratification, or indulgence in the senses like food and everything. So it is pleasure in the beginning, but eventually it becomes, it actually destroys the person. So this is the type of passion which is in the mode of, the type of happiness which is in the mode of passion. And the worst one is the mode of ignorance. Blind to self-realization, delusion from beginning to end, arises from sleep, laziness, illusion. So these are like, the type of happiness one gets from escapism. So basically trying to escape the world. So they escape the world with drugs or with, virtual reality or computer games, or to go to a different world. And and this usually ends in simply indulgence, laziness, nothing ever gets done, and definitely blind to self-realization. Delusion from beginning to end. So therefore, Krishna, we have gone through all these points. I have summarized them. Chapter 18 is long chapter, and a lot of it is philosophical, and it's very much linked to the previous chapter's understandings. So here we have just gone through them quickly. 5 causes of action, the 3 motives of action, right? And then the action and the worker in the 3 modes, understanding and determination in the 3 modes, happiness in the 3 modes. So basically, all of these are the secrets of action. One who understands these properly, they master action. They know what action to perform. So, and then Krishna goes on to talk about these actions are also all of them divided into the category of actions. According to these 3 modes, society is therefore divided into 4 classes. Because there are always people who will fall into any of these 3 modes. Just now that we mentioned, you know, all the actions, the worker, the happiness, so all of these basically, you can divide them into 4 society classes of society. So we have the Brahmana, who is in the mode of goodness. So his actions, his activity, his knowledge, his work, all of this will be in the mode of goodness. That such a person would be a Brahmana. So then there is Kshatriya. A Kshatriya is mixed between goodness and passion. So some things are good in goodness, some things are in passion. Whereas the Vaishya is a mixture between passion and ignorance. Some things are in passion, some things are in ignorance. Vaishya is the mercantile class, right? The farmer and the mercantile class, the businessman. That is Vaishya. Kshatriya is the administrative, the kingly, the royalty. So the warrior class, that is Kshatriya. So passion and goodness. Why goodness? Because they are guided by Brahmanas. So therefore, they are subservient to Brahmanas, or that's at least how they should be. So that is Kshatriya. So because they are guided and subservient to the Brahmanas, their direction is in the mode of goodness, but they need the mode of passion in order to perform their activities of protection and, you know, to do all these other things. So therefore, there's a mixture. The Vaishyas, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. Whereas the Shudras, this is the 4th class of society who do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. So if independence is given to them, they will perform things which are, you know, in the name of freedom, lots of horrible things can be done. So therefore, to check these, to ensure that such misuse of freedom is not carried out to the detriment of society, therefore they are protected and guided, and in this by these other 3 classes. So the Vaishyas and the Vaishyas will take care of the Shudras, the Kshatriyas will take care of the Vaishyas and the Shudras, and the Brahmanas guide the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And what's the purpose of all these things? So therefore, we have spoken about the 4 varnas in the 3 modes, but the purpose of society being arranged in such a way is so that there is no crossing. So therefore, there is no problems being caused by improper usage of freedom, and in this way creating havoc in society. So everything is geared accordingly to what? Achieving perfection. So that is the goal of this society order. The purpose of this Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahmana is to gear society towards a higher goal. Not just, you know, if a society doesn't have Brahmana, then they do not know there's a higher goal. So they will simply be worried about taking care of getting gains. So if it's only Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, it's all about just, you know, dominion, control, dominion. If there was no Kshatriyas, no honor, then there is only Vaishya, then it's all about greed. Everything is all about, you know, money, and that's how it works. If there are no even proper Kshatriyas and everyone is Shudra, then there is no direction to society. So people, in the name of all kinds of things, will do all kinds of horrible things. So that we can see now happening already in this world. So that is basically because it is a society of Shudras. So therefore, this was done. It was previously arranged in such a way so that every level of society is able to benefit and get and attain the goal of life. So it's like a leader who guides the entire group towards one direction. So when the leader reaches that direction, the rest of them also reach this direction. They reach the same goal. So that was the point. So this is called prayojan. Prayojan means the goal, the purpose of all of these things. So it's all arranged so that this goal is attained. So what is this goal? So then Krishna will reveal 1850 to 58. Of course, he has mentioned this before previously, but here he's arranging the points in a different way, and he's according to the three modes, according to the four classes of society, and again he is reiterating the same points again. This goal is ultimately to attain transcendence. That is the purpose of life. Human life is meant to attain transcendence. So every other activity that one performs, if it's not meant towards that transcendence, then it is no different from the activity of an animal. Because the animal and the humans, they have four things in common: eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. Whatever so-called society work or anything else ultimately is aimed towards these four things. So the difference here is, in human life, one can break the cycle of birth and death and attain transcendence. So this is what Krishna is saying. So one should, and this transcendence, the supreme goal, the supreme objective, the prayojan, can be understood in three levels. So the first level is the Brahman realization, which is the eternity aspect of the Lord. So everything is eternal. One comes to realize that spirit is eternal, he is eternal, that everybody else is also eternal, the energy of the Lord is eternal, and Brahman is this eternal spirit. So he comes to realize this point. Higher than that is the Paramatma realization, where one starts to begin to understand, yes, it's eternal, but he also understands cognizance. He starts to understand there is a supreme consciousness which is in control of this eternity, where this Brahman springs from. So that is Paramatma, and that Paramatma is everywhere. He starts to see the form of the Lord in every living entity, in every atom. So this is even higher. And the final goal, the final understanding is the Supreme Lord's form, Bhagavan realization. So where Krishna is the source of this Paramatma and the Brahman, and he reveals himself so in so many verses throughout this Bhagavad Gita, in every chapter. And he also gives the means to attain this. So one can either take the gradual method, which is the, the going through the modes, going through the karma kanda, the fruitive activities, which is given in the Vedas. In this way, gradually, life after life after life after life, one can slowly advance in consciousness and then come to yoga, and then take karma yoga, and then jnana yoga, and then dhyana yoga. And then in this way, after many lifetimes, one can eventually come to Brahman, and then after that Paramatma, and then Krishna. So one can either take this long path, or one can directly take the path of bhakti. So Krishna is giving the shortcut. Because in Kali Yuga, especially, we don't have long life. If a person lives for 100 years old, right, first 20 years is usually wasted. The first 10 years is spent in childhood. It's basically mode of ignorance. And then after that, the next 10 years is mode of passion. From teenage up to young adult, mode of passion. One is simply hankering after sense gratification and money. And then from the age of 30 onwards, it's a lot of responsibilities, right? So, and there is hardly much time for anyone to actually take up this long process. So, and after one is 60, one works until 60. And then after that, all the juice and vigor of life is already gone. The ability to understand the critical understanding of whatever it's already diminished. So at that time, if one is about to take up this jnana yoga and all these other things, it is going to be very difficult. With that little bit of the last tail end of the part of the life, one wants to utilize it, then this human life is wasted. It's not going to be easy. So therefore, Krishna reveals the path of bhakti. One can take it up even from childhood. Dhruva Maharaj perfected his life at 5 years old. Prahlad Maharaj perfected his life at 5 years old. At every age category, there are devotees who have perfected their life in devotional service. So, and it's an easy process, and it's a happy process. It's not a difficult process. So Krishna himself says, Sukham, this process is Sukham, blissful. Tusyanticha, Ramanticha, one is blissful in doing this process. So that is revealed also, and Krishna mentions. So we are not going through these particular verses, but I'm just mentioning them here. Yeah, I did put them here. Okay. 1854. So Krishna says, one who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman. So here is talking about achieving Brahman, becomes fully joyful. In that state, what happens when he attains that Brahman? Then he attains pure devotional service unto me. So Krishna is saying, don't have to take this long path. So therefore, understand that basically, ultimately, it leads towards me. And then in 1855, he says, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. So the Bhagavan realization is reserved only through the path of bhakti. It's exclusively reserved. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. And the advantage of the path of bhakti is one doesn't have to be very, very greatly qualified. Anybody can take it up. Even if somebody is in the mode of ignorance, in the tamasic modes, still simply by taking up the process of bhakti, that process of bhakti will purify us. We don't have to do it extraneously. We don't have to, with a difficult way, try to bring ourselves. Simply by chanting the holy names, for example, or simply by regularly reading the Bhagavad Gita, simply by understanding and hearing daily, one's consciousness becomes purified without even us knowing it. So we will start losing these desires, this interest. Our thinking becomes improved, but it has to be constant. And it's not difficult. So, just offer me a leaf, a fruit, a flower. Krishna says, I'm not asking for a great feast, but offer it with love and devotion, and it should be daily. So as much as possible. So therefore, the chanting, chant my names, that is the ultimate goal of all. That's the best and easiest process. Simply by doing that, one purifies one's heart. So even if you are in the mode of ignorance, it doesn't matter. So that's why Krishna recommends this path, especially in Kali Yuga, when we are all having shortness of time, shortness of anything else. So this is the best method. So then Krishna goes on, 1858. Oops, sorry. Okay, 1858. So I'll just say this verse, very important verse. Machita sarva durgani mat prasada tarisyasi ata chitvam ahankaran nasrosyasi vinansyasi. 1858. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. So this is what the devotees get. This is the great advantage of the path of bhakti. So Krishna is giving this promise. Yes, Maya is very powerful. She's material energy, but know that she's my energy. And by my grace, easily you can cross this. The same verse was also, the same point is also mentioned in chapter 7. Mayam eta tarantite. Very easily you can cross over this Maya, just like as if you're crossing over the hoof print, the print of the hoof of a calf. The ocean of Maya is so wide, but for my devotee, this entire ocean becomes the size of a footprint of a calf. Very easily you can cross over. A child can cross over. So by my grace. So all it requires is sincerity. All it requires is basically we begin with faith, Shraddha, and faith means sincerity, and there is regulation. So with these two, it can very quickly come to this level. Then Krishna says, so he says here, Mat Prasada, so Mat Chitta Sarva Durgani, thinking of me in this way. And then Krishna says, if, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So because Maya is very powerful, she is vast, and we are tiny sparks, tiny amsas. So therefore, the Lord is guiding us. If we let go the guidance, let go the Lord's hand, so that's why he himself comes to re-establish in this way, hoping that we can also take to this. So now for the grand conclusion, we have now completed most of the everything which Krishna wanted to speak. So here he's going to conclude. So let's hear what he has to say. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. So imagine, so here he is again raising the salient points. He's, after speaking the entire 18 chapters, talking about various points, approaching topics from various angles. Now he is highlighting the salient points. So here he says, you remember in chapter 2, for Krishna begins his instruction with Atma Tattva, knowledge of the soul. So therefore he says here, right, just like this car here, if a person is driving a car, this car is like the body, no matter how wondrous it may be, right, made out of material energy. It's made out of material energy, it's inert matter. It is made out of elements. It is the soul which is precious, which is actually giving direction to this body. And in the same way, he says, I am also in the heart of all living entities, and I am giving opportunities constantly for the jivas, for them to satisfy their desires. At the same time, the door is always kept open for them to come back. It's just that they do not know. So I'm ready, I'm there to give them that knowledge. So Krishna is saying this. It's a very nice verse. The word yantra, machine, is used. The machine in Sanskrit is used, is the word yantra. Just like how a machine is driven according to the instruction of the person who is driving this machine. So therefore the body, and this is the soul. And then, O sign of Bharata, surrender unto him utterly. So complete surrender. By his grace, you will attain transcendental peace and supreme and eternal abode. So this is the different ways Krishna is repeating the same points. Thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. And then see what he says here. This is the Lord. Very important point here. This is the fundamental aspect of Krishna's behavior with all the jivas. Deliberate on this fully, and then do what you wish to do. So Krishna doesn't force. Krishna doesn't force. He gives instructions, he gives the path, and it is left to the jivas to make their conscious choice. Why? Because love or prema or bhakti cannot be forced. Then it is not taking the aspect of love. And it is that love which will keep us in the spiritual world. The difference between those who are in spiritual energy and those who are in material energy. In the spiritual energy, every jiva lives for the pleasure of the Lord. They exist for the pleasure of the Lord. They live for others. Whereas in the material world, we live for ourselves. So that's the difference, fundamental aspect. So now we have this disease in our hearts. So therefore, Krishna has created this plan where at the same time we get to satisfy our desires, but the world acts in such a way, it will also frustrate us. And this frustration will lead us to self-introspection, and it will lead us to higher understanding. It will lead us to seek for answers, and that will lead us to the yoga path and will lead us to bhakti. And this bhakti will purify our disease, our hearts. So that is the way this material creation has been created for that purpose, paving the way for us to go back home, back to Godhead permanently. So that is the plan of the Lord in this material creation. So the conclusions are 1859 to 78. Arjuna's original dilemma. So here, Arjuna's initial aspect, he was confused, you know, he didn't know what to do, what not to do. So we heard about that already, right? And we will read this, we will see how it is, Krishna has given all this knowledge, deliberate on this fully, and then do what you want to do. And let's see what Arjuna will respond to that. So then, there's some verses here, 1864. Krishna will talk about the transcendental instruction to everyone. This we already covered. This is meant for everybody. Then he talks about the free will of the jiva, where he just now said, right, in 1863, do what you want. You heard all this already, now do what you want. But now, because he's the Supreme Father, his heart goes out to us. After giving this freedom, after telling everything and laying out the path for both classes of living entities and leaving it to the free will, Krishna gives a further, further emphasis. So it goes to show how much Krishna wants us to come back to him. So, and then he talks the most confidential transcendental instruction, the bhakti path. So very beautiful verses which will come after this, all very, very important verses which we can memorize and recite. So here we have Sarvaguya tamam bhuya shrinu me paramam vachaha ishto asi me dridam iti tato vakshyami te hitam. Just a minute. I'll just erase this. Okay. So the translation is, because you are my dear, very dear friend, I am speaking to you my most supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. And what is this confidential instruction? The verse right after that, he has mentioned the same points several times before. So, no, therefore, he still wants to give. So this is the Paramatma and this is the Jivatma. So when the Jivatma finally turns to the Paramatma will give the instruction for the Jivatma, how he can quickly come back to it. So this is a verse. Manmana bhava mat bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaisyashi satyam te pratijane priyosime. So he says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this, because you are my dear friend. So this is meant for the devotee. So try to take up the process of devotion. And in this way, by following this same process, we will come to this level. So therefore, Krishna says, you remember, ultimately, the point of it is to man mana bhava mat bhakto, to always think of me. So Krishna says, right, in chapter 12, if you cannot always think of me, at least follow the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, devotional service. So, you know, not everybody can think of him. So therefore, he says, become my devotee, take up the process of bhakti. And if you cannot at least do that seriously, at least work for me, he says, right, in chapter 12. So therefore, he says, if you cannot take this seriously, become devotional service, then you can at least give obeisances to me. In this way, when you take obeisance to me, you at least worship me in this way, and you work for me, you will get purified. and you will come to the stage of being a devotee. Then from there, you will come to the stage of always remembering me. So then he says, this is for certain. This is for certain. Several times he has said already, without a doubt, you will come to me if you follow this path. And then another beautiful verse. This is a very famous verse. You will hear it many times. One of the most famous verses in the Bhagavad Gita, made popular by all the movies. Sarvadharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion. So Krishna tells Arjuna, okay, never mind. Krishna is so eager to bring the jivas back to him. He says, okay, never mind all these other things. Never mind all the scriptures. Never mind all the three modes. Never mind all the Vedas. He just gives his ultimatum here. He says, just abandon all varieties of religion. Sarva dharma parityagya. All dharma, tyaga, abandon them. Just surrender unto me. Ekam sharanam vraja. Just mam ekam. Just to me alone, sharanam vraja. Surrender to me. And then what will be the result? Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. All your sarva papa, sins, all of your sins, I will remove. And I will deliver you. Do not fear. Moksha ishami. I will deliver you. Moksha ishami ma suchaha. Do not fear. So one who surrenders to the Lord in this way, it's assured. So therefore, Krishna recommends this. So these two verses aside, then Krishna goes on, right? Going to finish, right? He will finish. For one who explains, now he talks about how one can also benefit from this by giving this knowledge to others. So Krishna has completed everything that he has to say to Arjuna, and now he's trying to establish the parampara. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, now that you have heard from me, so what does he say here? For one who explains this supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed. And at the end, he will come back to me. So this is one of the things we can do when we hear this knowledge. We are all not born enlightened. At one point of time, we got this knowledge. So we should share this knowledge with others. We should take some effort. If we cannot share, then we can give the Bhagavad Gita to others. We can give it as a gift. It's one of the best gifts we can give to anybody. Simply giving the Gita to people, we get millions of credits. That is mentioned in the scriptures. Even if one keeps the Gita in the house without even looking at it, still his house is purified. And one day somebody will open it and read it. So this is the idea here. And Krishna says, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. Who is this person? One who tries to give this knowledge to others. So we cannot keep this to ourselves. If we want to be dear to the Lord, and that is definitely an advantage, so we would want to give this to others as much as possible. And I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. So this is a way to worship the Gita. We can take the Gita book. The Gita is as good as Krishna. It's non-different. So we respect the Bhagavad Gita like Krishna. We carry the Gita with our hands. We do not put it on the floor. We keep it in a special place. And we can also do worship for the Gita. We can put the Gita on the altar. We can do arati for the Gita. We can offer prasad bhoga for the Gita, because that is like a deity of the Lord, right? But even better than doing that is to study the Gita, is to recite the Gita, to understand the instructions, to try to follow them. So one who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. So there are different ways to worship. We can worship the Lord with paraphernalia, with articles, with our work, with our intelligence. So this is one of the ways to worship the Lord, with our intelligence. Nothing is lost in this endeavor. In 1871, and one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell, simply by listening, not even developing devotional service. So just reading the Gita with faith is sufficient to remove mountains of sins and elevate one to heavenly place, heavenly planets. And then Krishna gives 1873. So Krishna has finished speaking at this point. So this is the end of Krishna's instruction. And now let's see what Arjuna has to say. Arjuna Uvacha. So I'll just say the translation. My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. Nasto moha. Moha is illusion. And it's gone. And I've regained my memory. Smrtir. Smrtir means memory. Labda. I've got it. By your grace. Tvat prasadan. Prasadan means mercy. By your grace, by your mercy, I have now free from illusion. Maya Achyuta. Oh Achyuta. Achyuta means infallible one of the names of Krishna. I am now firm and free from doubt. So this is determination in the mode of goodness, knowledge in the jnana also in the mode of goodness. So standing in the mode of goodness, he can now reach towards transcendence. And what is this transcendence? To act according to the Lord's instruction. I am now firm and free from doubt. So this is mode of goodness, standing in the mode of goodness, and I am prepared to act according to your instructions. So this is transcendental, beyond the three modes, sattva guna, according to the instructions of the Lord. So therefore, this is the conclusion, right? We heard about all this, Arjuna's original dilemma, transcendental instructions for everyone, free will of the jiva being re-established here, and Krishna again continues to push the last point of the main point that he wanted to push. Become my devotee, surrender unto me, follow this path. And we heard Arjuna's decision, what he wants to do. And finally, who is recording all these things? Who is saying all that is transpiring in the battlefield of Kurukshetra? It is Sanjaya, the secretary of Dhritarashtra. The Bhagavad Gita began with Dhritarashtra Uvacha, where Sanjaya is recounting what's happening. So here we will hear what Sanjaya has to say. So Sanjaya Uvacha, Yatra Yogeshwaraha Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdaraha, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, master of mystics, Krishna. Wherever there is Arjuna, the great archer, Dhanurdara. Dhanur means the bow, archer, and Dara, one who is the greatest archer. There will also certainly be opulence, victory. There will be Tatra Shri. Shri is opulence. Vijaya, victory. Bhutir, extraordinary power. Dhruva Nitir. Nitir means morality, dharma. Matir Mama. That is my opinion. So this is what Sanjaya tells to Dhritarashtra. In other words, telling Dhritarashtra, gone already for you. Your children, your Pandavas your Kauravas are definitely going to lose this battle. So this is what's going to happen. So Krishna and Arjuna, the greatest archer, the greatest mystic, is both in the other side, the Pandava side. So therefore, this verse, a lot of Feng Shui and Vastu masters, they like to take this verse. So, they like to put pictures of Krishna and Arjuna in their house. So, there's a lot of copper tooling and these kind of photos or frames. But the real Vastu, the real spirit, the real benefit is basically to understand the knowledge of the Gita, the meaning and the spirit of the Gita. So we have the takeaways for today. Detachment of the fruits of action is key to liberation. So better than sannyas is to take up tyaga, to renounce the fruits, to perform activities with the sake of duty, but that is in the mode of goodness. So Krishna is basically telling, at least come to the mode of goodness. And then he says, action in the mode of goodness is conducive for transcendence. So standing in the mode of goodness, one can reach towards transcendence. But Krishna in the end says, ultimately just give up all this, everything else. Just take up devotional service. Even if you are in the mode of ignorance, mode of passion, simply by performing these transcendental activities, by surrendering unto me, I will take full care of you. So bhakti is the ultimate goal of action and knowledge. Even all this mode of goodness, we heard how all of this eventually works towards attaining bhakti. Krishna says, right, by following this, eventually you come to Brahman, by coming to the mode of goodness, and then, following the Varnashram Dharma, it's all aimed towards attaining transcendence, and the first level of transcendence is Brahman. But then he says, but in the end, the Brahman comes from me, and I am the goal of that Brahman. So therefore, he says, give up all this aspect. This is all knowledge, yes, but ultimately understand that devotional service is the ultimate point. So read Gita. So Krishna then talks about those who give this Gita to others. What is the benefit of those who read Gita? By understanding Gita, one worships with our intelligence. And more important than that is to live the instructions of the Gita, to follow based on what Krishna has told us. And never to forget to give this Gita to others, to give the book, and also whenever possible to tell about these points to others, to instruct our family, to give this to our children, to our grandchildren, to our friends. And in this way, we please Krishna. And Krishna says, right, such a person becomes very, very dear to the Lord. And this is the goal of everything. Krishna, the highest goal, and bhakti, the best path. So this has been mentioned in every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, so that one doesn't deviate. And yet, there are many people who transcribe and translate the Bhagavad Gita. They try to leave Krishna out. They try to leave bhakti out. They try to change the message of the Gita to suit a particular agenda. So that evidence is within the verses themselves. The verses are directly, they speak for themselves. You can see the translations are very obvious. Krishna is mentioned in every chapter, and bhakti is glorified in every chapter. So this is therefore Bhagavad Gita as it is. We give our thanks to Srila Prabhupada, and bhakti, very simple processes to follow bhakti, and we like to stress upon the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, as mentioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let us chant this together. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So before we open for questions and comments, I'd just like to mention we have finished our 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita. Thank you so much for all of you for staying with me for these 18 days. So I'm aware that some of you can't make it all the time. Some of you are following the videos. So that's fine. So what I'm going to do is later on, I will send a feedback link. So I will in the group. So you can click on the link and you can give your feedback about this course, and whatever you feel like you want to say, you can also say at that time. If you're shy to say indirectly or whatever, you can put it there, no worries. So we will take it. And at the same time, I just want to mention it actually the course should end today, but I'm thinking of having one more day. So day 19, this is plus one. This is something extra which I was thinking of doing it tomorrow, where we will go through the Bhagavad Gita, the entire chapters in a bird's eye view, so that we can capture the sorry, can I just mute you for the moment? Okay, thank you, Mataji. All right, so just in day 19, what I will do is I will in 40 minutes, I will go through the entire Gita, each topic, each chapter, the main points, and try to link them together so we can get the bird's eye view of the chronology of the conversation that takes place. And this would also, after that, we will open up for some sharing, because today is getting late. So we didn't really get time to get to know all of you. So, there's no icebreaker session. It's been 18 straight days going through the Gita. So since we have spent some time with all of you, so it would be nice if we can also share tomorrow of how things have been, and what are your realizations or whatever. Briefly, if you don't want to go into details, you can also put it in the feedback in the link, which I will send after this. And after that, I will speak about level 2. So what is going to happen in level 2, whether or not you'd like to take part in level 2. So just to let you know now itself, level 2 will be a weekly session, not a daily session. It will be a weekly session. We will have to decide which day. So that's one of the reasons you need to, if you're interested in the level 2, you can click on the link, which I'll send later. We will ask for your feedback on which day will be convenient for you. So if you, that way I can collate the information and I can discuss the result tomorrow, and then we can decide when we're going to do it. So what is level 2 all about? It's basically, the main philosophy of the Gita is this. We've already given it in level 1. I've actually gone in more detail compared to the other groups. So I've put in extra, there are many things which I've added extra. So it's sort of covering the entire philosophy. So what I will do in level 2 is, we will speak more about devotional service itself. What are the practical aspects of devotional service? There will be more stories from the scriptures, reinforcing the points that we have raised in Bhagavad Gita. At the same time, we will also go through each chapter of Bhagavad Gita. I will give a summary of the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, like that in each week that we discuss, so that we will, you will have time to go back, reflect a little, go through your notes, and definitely there will be many questions that you may want to raise. So this will be an opportunity for you to clarify on the Bhagavad Gita chapter itself. We can go through also. And at the same time, there will also be special topics. So in some weeks, I will introduce special topics, such as why do bad things happen to good people? Or why do good things happen to bad people? Or in other words, the law of karma. Earlier I promised I will go through these things in detail in level 2. So this will be a special topic, for example. Another special topic will be, you might be interested to know about all the Vedic scriptures, to understand the length and breadth of the Vedic scriptures. What are the Vedic scriptures? Where is Bhagavad Gita positioned in these Vedic scriptures? What are the Vedas? So that is also a session which I can give in the level 2. And then we will also talk about why so many religions. If God is one, why are there so many religions in this world? What's the plan behind all this? What's happening? So that is also something which we can talk about. And then we will also talk in more detail about the Lord himself, the energies of the Lord, the energies of the Supreme. How does the Lord's energies work? How does creation take part in detail? So, and these kind of things we can speak about. And of course, we will speak in more detail about devotional service, how to practice Bhakti Yoga in detail, how to day, every one of us, child, adult, mother, father, brother, sister, every one of us can take part in this. Like I'm also a working person. So I have a family also, 2 children, and full time. I go to, after work, all this I have to prepare, and then so how we can practically do things like this, so we can share our realizations on how we can be part of this devotional practice. So this is basically level 2, and it's basically to also continue with this association. So if you like this, if you like what we have been doing, and you cannot do it daily, so at least we can do it weekly. So it'll be nice if all of you can join, and then we can also discuss various matters. Hopefully it can be more interactive. Bhagavad Gita, we didn't have much time to be interactive because so many things to say within a short period of time. But in level 2, we can be more interactive. We can talk, we can, raise points, we can get to know each other better. So that's the idea, right? So tomorrow we can discuss the details of the timing and all that. And hopefully you can also join me tomorrow. So before that, before we end, any questions you'd like to raise for today?
I just got a simple one. I been growing up, I see the statue of Lord Krishna be blue, but I see all these pictures, they are black. Is there any reason why it's changed?
So the color of the Lord is called Shama. He's Shama Sundara. Shama Sundara means the most beautiful blackish one. So the description, but this black is not the black that we know of. It's not the same. So it's a transcendental spiritual color which cannot be imagined without seeing that person directly. So for want of a better description, so therefore he's painted sometimes black, sometimes dark blue. Because in some places, the Shastras, they describe the color of the Lord as that of the sky, the night sky. Why is the night sky the color that it is? Because it is a reflection of the hue of the Lord. And that you can get some idea about the color of the Lord by looking at the night sky. And it's also described in other places that he's the color of the fresh monsoon rain cloud. So, but these are all material descriptions, mundane. We cannot begin to understand the beauty of the Lord. So therefore, these descriptions are given for want of a better way to do it. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thanks.
Okay. So there's one question by Vijay Kumar Prabhu. Can I ask if the 4 varna is classified by birth or work they do? So this we already covered in chapter 4, I think. Janma is not Janma karma, is Guna karma. So varna is decided by Guna and karma, activity and qualities. So one's nature or one's qualities and one's activities. That means what does one do? So one person may have a quality of, they may have the very intellectual quality or something like that, but also depends on the work that they do. What is it they do? If he becomes a butcher, though he may be very intellectual, philosophically inclined, but if he's a butcher, then he cannot be classified as a Brahmana. So a Brahmana is one who is having the quality of the Brahmana and the activity of the Brahmana. So in this way, there is no frustration. Everybody is engaged in the right engagement. So that is in previous ages. In Kali Yuga, unfortunately, everybody is born Varna, born Shudra. So in previous ages, although it is Guna and Karma, but because of parental birth, in the same way the parents are Brahmins, and then their child will also naturally will have similar inclinations, or at least very similar opportunities to attain the same, because its association is such. So there is good chance that the child may also take up that same thing. So therefore, it became what you call a generational thing, passing through generations. But actually, that's not how it's defined. Bhagavad Gita clearly says, Guna Karma Vibhagaha, differentiated according to quality and nature. Can a Shudra ever do the work of a Brahmana? Yes. The moment he has developed the quality, so he cannot just do. So just like we cannot just become a neurosurgeon, suddenly you take a scalp and then tell the patient, okay, I'm going to operate on you. I must have the quality and I must have the knowledge. So therefore, then I can become. So anybody can become anything so long as one is having the inclination and the knowledge to attain them. Then one can become a Brahmana. So that's why ISKCON, we are trying to create a society of Brahmanas, a society where we may not be born as Brahmanas, but we act accordingly to the Brahmanas. We follow the 4 regulative principles. We, try to read the scriptures, understand these points, live our life in the mode of goodness. So then in this way, one can come to that platform. At the same time, not everybody is in that level also. So that's okay. because when you talk about devotion, it transcends the modes. One can be a Sudra and still attain the Lord. One can be a Vaishya and still attain the Lord. Not everybody may have that inclination. So does that answer the question, Prabhuji? Okay.
Prabhu, this is Rajan here, Prabhu.
Yes.
Just one question. Do all these 4 varnas exist in all 4 yogas?
Yes, it does. This 4 varna and ashram, it's not just varna, it's also the ashram. These 4 varnas is created by the Lord for the purpose of advancement of human society by proper organization. So this was established in the beginning. I believe technically though, in Satya Yuga, I don't think all 4 varnas were there.
Yeah, because Sudra would be ignorance. They say Dharma was on all 4 legs. Is it?
Yeah. So, but I know for a fact that Treta Yuga had a Shudra. So these 4 varnas were established in Treta Yuga, if I'm not mistaken. In the Satya Yuga, mostly it was, I believe, Brahmana and Kshatriyas. So that would be the, and maybe not even Vaishyas, because in Satya Yuga, there were no cities really. It was mostly forests and it was all different. So I would say that.
Because I'm just wondering whether it's possible that the varnas were slowly introduced through the yogas. In other words, whether in Satya Yoga you only had Brahmins, and then in Trita, Kshatriyas were introduced, and in Dwapara, Vaishyas was introduced, and thereafter in Kali Yuga, Sudras were introduced. That's just my thoughts. I do not know whether that's
no, it's not like that. In the beginning, there was just Brahmanas and I believe Kshatriyas. But in Treta Yuga, this 4 order is introduced by the Lord. So it was introduced together. So there is evidence that there are Shudras, Vaishyas, and Brahmanas and Kshatriyas during Lord Ramachandra's reign that happened in the Treta Yuga. So this is there. And there were definitely all these 4 classes. From the moment of its inception, in the Gita, Krishna says, I established these 4 varnas. So that is also an evidence of that.
Thank you, Prabhu.
All right. So there's also another question by Vijay Kumar Prabhu. How does Gita see all other faiths, followers, Islam, Christianity, Sikhs? Well, Gita doesn't see it that way. But in chapter 17, we saw the divisions of faith, right? So we can understand these from the divisions of faith. But for more information on this, we will reserve it for our level 2 discussion, where I will have a topic where we will speak about all this. Okay, Prabhu? Very good.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else anyone wants to say?
Just regarding the duration of the 2nd level, how long does it go on, Prabhu?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that will be about 20 weeks, 20 plus weeks, 24, I think 24 to 28 weeks, maybe 24 weeks. So it will go on weekly. So, I mean, it's not if you want to stop coming at any point, that's fine with me. So it's just that if anyone is interested to continue, that they can continue. It will be based on topics. So there's no coercion here. So it's based on your, I mean, if you can't attend one of those also, there will be recordings also. You can also refer to it. So the idea is, if you would like to continue with level 2, then you can remain in the group, the chat, in the WhatsApp, and I will send the message tomorrow, Prabhuji, and then we can discuss further on that. But generally, it's 24 weeks.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. So I hope I was able to serve all of you nicely with this Gita. So, and if everything is fine, and anyway, you can give your feedbacks. We'll be happy to address any questions or anything else. If you have anything further to talk about or discuss, or if you disagree on any aspects, we can still discuss on all those things in level 2. So we'll end here. So I hope to see you again tomorrow, day 19, where we'll go through, I mentioned already what we will do in day 19. So after that, we will go straight to level 2 next week onwards. So thank you very much. Srila Bhagavad Gita Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Krishna Bhagavan Ki Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.